Hello everybody and welcome to this theory video which will talk you through theme 2.6, so 2.6 of the theme 2 specification. Now the focus of this video is going to be on supply side policies. So what we're going to be looking at in this video is the difference between market-based or free market and interventionist supply side policies. We'll be thinking about how we can use diagrams to explain these different theories, look at lots of different examples of supply side policies, and then we're going to evaluate it by looking at the strengths and the weaknesses. Okay, so again, what I would like to do at the end of this video, there will be a set of questions. So once you watch the video, what I would like to do is to answer those questions, please. Right, so first of all, then let's think about what supply side policies are. Now, all these are deliberate attempts by the government to improve the productivity and the efficiency of the economy. So the idea would be that if these are successful, they will create potential economic growth. So they will either improve and or increase the factors of production of the economy. So what you can see towards the bottom of the page here is a classical and a Keynesian long-run aggregate supply curve. So what supply side policies try to do is to push out the LRAS curve. If you thought about a business cycle, these will make the trend rate become steeper the more successful these different policies actually are. Right, now these policies can either be interventionist or free market based. Interventionist policies are designed to encourage the government to intervene more in the economy. So it's about more government intervention to correct market failures. So deliberate attempts by the government to improve or increase the factors of production of the economy. Now look, we've got here. We could argue a really simple thing the government can do is to spend more money to improve public services. So we tend to focus here on things such as education and healthcare. So if more funds go to schools and colleges, more funds go towards the NHS, then that will mean that workers will become better educated, better skilled, but they'll be fitter and more productive at work as well. They'll take less time off, that type of thing. So what this is, it will improve the quality of human capital across the economy. Now what this will also do though, it will tackle occupational immobility. Now this is where workers lack appropriate skills for new jobs in the economy. So if people haven't got the right skills in the economy for the jobs available, they are structurally unemployed. There's a supply side reason why they cannot supply their labour. Well, if we can help people acquire the appropriate skills, then this will help tackle structural unemployment and allow these people to supply more of their labour. Another one is infrastructure development. So we could be looking at transport links. So if the government were to spend more money on, let's say, road networks, train links, port facilities across the country, then what this will do, it will help tackle geographical mobility of labour. So the idea would be that sometimes, long distances to get to and from work might make it difficult for people to commute to better jobs in different parts across the country. If you've got a better transport infrastructure, then people can supply their labour further afield, and that helps firms access more skilled, more productive workers for jobs. It also creates more competition in labour markets as well, because suddenly people in Manchester might be competing with people from nearby towns and cities for jobs in their city, and that should inspire people to work harder and become more productive. Now on top of that as well, infrastructure could be upgrading power supplies, so firms can access more reliable, more efficient means of powering their industry. It could be better communication technologies, the latest internet connection speeds, which allows firms to communicate more effectively. What these things will also do, they'll be incentivise firms to invest. So they want to tap into that infrastructure that's been upgraded for them. And that could lead to more investment, into more capital, which again can support better potential economic growth. It's a little bit like a multiplier effect, really. So if there's more infrastructure spent by the government, it will incentivise more investment by firms into more capital. The next one could be firms investing into research and development. So governments might invest more money into how to research better renewable energy production. It could be a case that the government might offer subsidies to firms to invest into more capital development. And again, that can boost productivity across the economy. Another one that could happen could be the government might improve social housing provision. They might build more state housing in areas where people can't generally afford to buy property. If people can access better housing, they've got better mental health, they're more physically fit, and they're more able to relocate for jobs in more expensive places across the economy. So that will improve the supply of labour for businesses. Another thing that could be done is the government could increase minimum wage rates. So the idea would be when people go to work, they've got to consider the opportunity cost of their labour. So by going to work, you're sacrificing leisure time, but you've also got potentially the costs, such as not just transport costs, but childcare costs. So the logic would be if you were to increase minimum wage rates, then we should be incentivising more generally low-skilled people to supply their labour within an economy. So the idea is, everyone, what all these different policies do, they require the government to step up their involvement in the economy to improve the factors of production across our economy to make the LRAS move outwards. Now, free market supply side policy or market orientated strategies, these are about the government reducing their role in the state. So the idea is if the government reduce their involvement in the state, they're allowing private enterprise and consumers to make more decisions for themselves. And the argument often this will create more competition and more efficiency across the country. Right, okay, so look at some of the ideas that we can do. We can use something we call privatisation. So in the past, lots of big industries in the UK, such as the rail network, power supplies, other utilities such as communications companies were owned by the state or by the government. Now, when they were owned by the government, they were not set up to create profit. They were set up to provide an essential service. And what that did, it often led to inefficiency creeping into the economy. If we sell these businesses off to the private sector, then we call that privatisation. We're allowing profit-making companies to run these industries for us. And as soon as these firms come in, they want to generate profit. So they start to squeeze costs, they invest more money into capital, and that should lead to more productivity improvements across the economy. Linked to this is something called deregulation. Now, we look at this in a lot of detail in theme 3, but the idea is here, what we're trying to do is make it easier for new firms to enter markets and compete with more established companies. So, for example, BT used to dominate the phone market. They were the only company people could use. And the problem with this was when there is no competition, then firms don't need to become more efficient. They haven't got to worry about investing, and they become quite lazy and bone idle. So what deregulation would do is to try to remove obstacles to competition and make it easy for new rival firms to set up and compete against them. So it's encouraging more enterprise, which is more investment, more businesses, more creativity. And it now means that BT have got to work harder, become more productive, etc., to keep hold of their consumers. Now, another one could be reducing income tax rates. The idea is if income tax rates are too high, then it's kind of disincentivizing people from working. So what we could do, if we were to reduce taxes, we're incentivizing more people to work. We're allowing people to keep more of their incomes from supplying their labour. So it should encourage a bigger supply of labour, and it should inspire people to want to gain promotions to gain extra money. Now, on top of that as well, what we could do is to reduce business taxes, such as corporate taxes. This could attract more foreign firms into the country from across the world, which leads to more investment and more competition. But also, if we lower taxes, it means that firms can earn more profit and they can reinvest this money back into their company, into better capital and infrastructure, which again is a supply side benefit for the economy. Now, another one, next one's quite controversial, is something we call deregulating labour markets. So what we're doing here, we're removing lots of rules that govern how you've got to treat your workers. Now, if we do these types of things here, we're making it easy for firms to hire and fire workers. Now, the logic is if it's easier to hire and fire workers, then it will incentivise firms to recruit more workers in the first place. And that creates more employment opportunities. Again, more competition and more efficiency starts to creep into it here. And this is what's led to the growth of things like 0-hour contracts, where people get no guaranteed hours at work. But it should mean, in theory, that if people want more hours, they should be competing against other workers, working hard, so they can get more hours through their employer. So again, that should lead to more competition and more efficiency creeping into markets. Now, a few more. We could reduce the power of trade unions, which happened under Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s. Now, a trade union is something that represents the rights of workers. They fight for better pay, better conditions, and often if they don't get what they want, they will try and take their members on strike. So if we reduce the power of trade unions, it's making it more difficult for people to strike. And it leads to more efficiency creeping into industry, because workers are going to be at work more, they'll be working more hours. And again, it should lead to that productivity improvement that we're all looking for. The next one, reduce unemployment benefits. If we give people unemployment benefits, you could argue that they actually disincentivize people from working. So if you were to cut benefits, you are encouraging or incentivizing more people to go out and work, and hopefully work for longer hours. And again, that will push up the supply of labour in the country. The next one, deregulate financial markets. Now, the idea here is it's about trying to make it easier for new banks to set up and compete against each other for customers. If you've got more banks in the financial sector, if they're all competing to lend money to people, it should mean that interest rates on borrowing start to go down. And that might make it easy for firms to access the credit they need to expand, to grow, or to set up new businesses in the first place. So it promotes investment and new enterprise to take place. Another one is to promote free trade. So make it easier for foreign firms to sell their goods in your economy. Now, what this does, it will expose our businesses to more competition. Now, what that will mean is it will mean that, foreign firms can sell their goods in Britain, which means British firms, again, have got to invest, become more productive if they're going to keep hold of their customers. So hopefully you've picked up a lot of these ideas are about boosting competition and efficiency to generate better productivity. Last two, remove red tape. So for many businesses, expanding can be extremely expensive due to the bureaucracy of it. So applying for planning permission, getting the approval of local councils and governments to expand certain businesses. Well, if we make that whole process a lot quicker and more simple, then again, it should mean that more firms want to grow and expand across the country. Finally, encourage immigration. Britain was until quite recently in the European Union, which meant what we had was something called the free movement of labour. And this allowed people from across the EU to come live and work in the UK. Well, that allows the UK to import skilled workers, even low skilled workers where we might have labour shortages in Britain. So what immigration will do, it will expand and improve the supply of labour across the country. It gives firms an access to better, more skilled workers. Right, anyway, how can supply side policy support macroeconomic objectives? Well, the idea would be that if we can boost that long run aggregate supply curve, then aggregate demand can grow to meet that new production possibility frontier. So more potential economic growth allows for aggregate demand to keep on increasing. But also, because when LRAS moves outwards, you tend to find that things are more productive, more efficient, business costs start to fall. So what that should do, it should allow for more growth in aggregate demand without conflicting with the target of inflation. So it shouldn't lead to lots and lots of inflation. So it means that AD can grow without creating positive output gaps. Now, the next one, the idea would be that supply side policy also should support jobs. If it's giving people better skills, then people can escape structural unemployment. If we take away people's benefits, it will reduce frictional unemployment, that time between jobs. And what this will do, it will help incentivize that growth in labour markets and reduce that natural rate of unemployment by removing frictional and structural unemployment from the economy. Right at the bottom, because I've already mentioned the inflation one really, we've got improved trade performance. Now, if we're boosting the competitive, such as the efficiency and the productivity of our economy, then the logic would be that Britain will become more internationally competitive. That will mean that exports from Britain should start to increase because they're now cheaper and better quality, and that will improve our trade performance. What it might even do, it might even suck in foreign firms that want to base production in Britain to access the better infrastructure and better workers. And if that happens, again, you're going to get all that investment money coming in, and the goods those firms make in Britain but then sell abroad still count as British exports. So it's really, really good for supporting macro objectives. There are, however, a few problems. You tend to get a time lag. A lot of these policies are long-term strategies. So if we look at something such as improving human capital, upgrading infrastructure, these things take time to benefit the economy. Okay, so they're not going to be an overnight fix. They might take years before we see the benefit of them. Next one, they're often very expensive, especially the interventionist supply side policies. They require governments to spend lots of money. Well, if that's true, then you've got to consider, the impact on national debt and budget deficits. So really, really expensive things to do. The next one, a lot of them are not very popular. Let's think about some of those free market ones. They're exposing people to more competition. Well, businesses don't want more competition. It makes it more difficult to make profits. UK firms don't want to be competing with foreign firms. UK workers don't want to be competing for jobs with foreign workers. Well, those market-orientated strategies, they encourage this. People like trade unions because it protects their interests. Removing them could see wage rates start to fall for some people. So you tend to find that quite a lot of these policies, especially the free market ones, they can lead to the gap opening up in inequality between rich and poor people. So there are some key problems of these policies. Right, guys, now you've watched the video, what I would like you to do, please, is to finish off by writing down your answers to these 5 questions. Wherever you're struggling suggests there's a gap in your knowledge. So what it might be a case of doing is once you've put down your answers, just checking back through the relevant part of the video to make sure you understand the answer to each of these different questions. Right, everyone, thank you very much.